My name is Hans-Peter Lankes. I am the Managing Director and Deputy Chief Executive of ODI Global, a leading global affairs think tank. We have the privilege of having Amadou Hott with us. He's a candidate for the African Development Bank Presidency, with the election forthcoming in May. Amadou Hott has over 25 years of experience in economic policy, in development finance, and in investment banking. Amongst others, he served as Senegal's Minister of Economy, Planning and Cooperation, and as Vice President of the bank. Mr. Hott, I would like to ask you some questions about your vision for the role. How can and should the African Development Bank address Africa's biggest challenges at the current juncture?
Thank you very much. On top of my mind, Africa has a lot of challenges, and I will address 4 of them. First, we have higher unemployment rate and lack of quality revenue generating economic activity, especially for the youth and women. To address this, we need to invest massively in education, in skills for jobs, retooling our people, and making sure that we are also promoting industries and sectors that are job creating and facilitating also financing for entrepreneurs. Number 2, I see as well the issue of a lack of access to social infrastructure such as healthcare services, but also infrastructure services including energy, transport, and access to water. It is very critical for the bank to engage reforms in those sectors and enable more public and private sector investments in those sectors. Number 3, I see climate change as a very big issue. The bank is already a leader in climate finance, but more needs to be done, in particular to mobilize more grant and concessional resources to finance adaptation projects and resilience projects. Number 4, and lastly, the issue of self-reliance. Africa must be more self-reliant, specifically financially, to finance its development, to be able to mobilize its own resources. And the bank will support that to mobilize more the domestic resources from the public side and from the private sector side as well.
How will you position the African Development Bank to expand its lending capacity and, at the same time, unlock more private sector financing for Africa?
In this current context where development aid is reducing, it is very important to be able to leverage the scarce resources that Africa, through the bank or directly, will be receiving, but also boost value for money when we are investing. Make sure also that we are mobilizing our own domestic resources, as I said. In terms of boosting the bank's lending capacity, I see 3 avenues. Number 1, for the African Development Bank window, to use more hybrid capital, especially blended and concessional hybrid capital, to expand the risk capital of the bank so that the bank can do more, both with private sector and the public sector. I would like also to see the bank to use more the risk mitigant instruments and guaranteed instruments to transfer also the bank risk more to the private sector and therefore expand its own balance sheet. It has done it already with very successful transactions. We need to continue doing that. And then lastly, in that front of mobilizing the bank's lending capacity is the African Development Fund, to make sure as soon as 2026 that we are taking it to the capital market and leverage the market to do more for the 37 low-income countries in Africa.
Now, what is your top priority for the African Development Bank if elected?
If elected, first of all, I'll focus on really quickly helping modernize the bank, making it more agile, increasing its operational capabilities, really retaining, promoting, incentivizing the talent, and also attracting more talent at the bank, to make sure also we're using digital technology to improve our procedures and reduce the time it takes to do things at the bank. I think that will be a big priority for us, making sure also that we are using our convening power to enable reforms on the continent. Number two, I would like, as the next president of the bank, to quickly implement the idea of revolutionizing the private sector operations of the bank. That will be a top priority. And third, boosting partnerships. We cannot do things alone. Partnerships such as Mission 300 with the World Bank will be among the top priorities, because if we want to do big things on the continent, we have to partner, other parties. And fourth, making sure that we are really the voice, amplifying the voice of Africa on the international stage, in particular in these reforms of the international financial architecture. And lastly, using the bank's convening power, trusted advisor role to put domestic resource mobilization, project preparation, efficient implementation at the highest of the agendas of policymakers, of the bank, and of the private sector, so that we can improve drastically our ability to finance and implement qualitative and impactful projects on the continent to impact people's lives.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hott. It was a real privilege talking to you.